Yes, ma'am.
Last day we just started about input-output organization. And we have discussed that input-output devices are called peripheral devices because they are not online with the actual computer. They are connected externally to the machine, and input-output devices cannot be directly connected to the machine. They must be connected through some interface circuits. We have discussed why the interface circuits are required, and to make the two part compatible, an interface is required between the machine and the I/O devices. And so we see that the processor, which has I/O bus as data, address, and control lines, and each output device is connected through its particular interface. Now, whenever the processor generates an address in the address line, each interface detects that address, and whose address is same as that of the address line. That particular interface connects the peripheral device to the processor. All the other interfaces does not connect the devices to the processor. So in this way, the data transfer is done. Now, whenever the some data is available in the address line, then also some signals are available also in the control lines. Now, depending on the signals, the interface selected responds to the function code and proceed to execute. So that particular interface selected, they execute according to the function code. Now, this function code is known as I/O command, and there may be 4 different types of I/O command that an interface may receive. They are classified as control command, status command, data output command, data input command. Now, control command, when control command is issued, it is issued to activate the peripheral and to inform it what to do. As for example, if your peripheral device is a magnetic tape, it may be instructed either to go back or to rewind through this control command. Next one type is status command. Status command is used to test various status conditions in the interface and the peripheral. And during the transfer, one or more error may occur which are detected by this interface. They are designated by setting some bits in the status register available in the interface, and the processor can read those in certain intervals. Next one is data output. When data output command is issued, it causes the interface to respond by transferring data from the bus into one of the registers of the interface connect for that particular peripheral device. As for example, if your peripheral device is a tape unit, the computer starts the tape moving by issuing some control command. It then monitors the status of the tape by status command. When the tape is in the correct position, then the processor issues data output command so that data will be stored into the tape. The input command is the reverse of the output command. It is the opposite of the output command. In this case, the interface receives an item of data from the peripheral and places it in its buffer register. The processor checks if data are available by means of status command and then issues a data input command. Whenever the data input command is issued, the interface places the data on the data lines where they are accepted by the processor. So, the 4 different type of control signals can be placed in the I/O bus through these control lines. Now, I/O versus memory bus. Now, here we see that to communicate with the peripheral device, the processor is connected to these I/O devices through the I/O bus, which has 3 lines: data lines, address lines, and control lines. Now, in addition to communicating with the I/O, the processor must also communicate with the memory unit. So, like the I/O bus, it must have a memory bus which also contains data bus, address bus, and read-write control lines. Now, there are 3 ways that computer buses can be used to communicate with the memory and the I/O. So, we must have, in addition to communicating with the I/O, the processor must communicate with the memory, and also in the memory unit, they have the bus 3 control lines, that is data line, address line, and control line. Now, how the computer buses can be used to communicate with memory and the I/O both? There are 3 different ways that computer buses can be used to communicate with memory and I/O. First one is use 2 separate buses, one for memory and the other for I/O. কোনো কিছু ঝামেলা নেই, একটা বাস আমি রাখবো through which the processor will communicate with the memory, some complete different arakta bus রাখবো through which the CPU will communicate with the I/O devices. So use 2 separate buses, one for memory and the other for I/O. So here, obviously, the total number of circuits requirement will be large. So another way of connecting is use one common bus both for memory and I/O, but have separate control lines for each. That means the data line and the address line will be common for both memory and I/O, but they must have separate control lines for each. That means CPU will communicate with either to the memory or to the I/O through different control lines, but data will be transferred, address or data will be transferred between the CPU and the memory, or the CPU and the I/O from the common lines. And the third one is use of common bus for memory and I/O with common control lines. তার মানে আমার একটাই বাস থাকবে that can be used both for memory and I/O. Now what will happen for them? In the first method, when the computer has independent sets of data, address, and control lines, one for accessing memory and the other for I/O. This is done in computers that provide a separate I/O processor in addition to the CPU. So in some machines, what is done? In addition to the CPU, some I/O processors are provided, and through these I/O processors, the I/O devices or I/O bus is connected. The memory communicates with both the CPU and the I/O processor through memory buses, but the I/O processor communicates with the I/O devices through a separate bus. So when we use 2 independent control sets of data, but 2 independent buses for accessing memory and I/O, in those computers, generally separate I/O processors are used in addition to the CPU. The memory can communicate directly with the CPU and the I/O processor, but the I/O processor is used only to communicate with the I/O devices through the I/O bus. The second type, where we use same address and data lines for both the I/O and the memory, but different control lines for memory and I/O. That is known as isolated I/O devices. Many computers use a common bus to transfer information between memory or I/O and the CPU. The distinction between a memory transfer and I/O transfer is made through separate control lines. The transfer of information between memory or I/O and the CPU is common, but the distinction between a memory transfer or I/O transfer is made through separate control lines. The CPU specifies whether the address on the address line is for memory word or the interface in registers by enabling one of the 2 possible control lines. The IO read, IO write control lines are enabled during IO transfer. Memory read or memory write control lines are enabled during a memory transfer. So that is known as isolated. This configuration is known as isolated IO method. In the isolated IO configuration, the as I have mentioned that the controls are different, so it must have either read write, it will either enable read write control line for the IO or read write control line for the memory. So this type of architecture must have different instructions to generate control signal either for the IO or for the memory. So it must have instructions that are in the isolated IO configuration. The CPU has distinct input-output instructions in addition to read-write instructions. যখন আমার ইনস্ট্রাকশনটা থাকবে read or write, that means control signal will be generated for the memory read-write. When the instructions is involved with input-output instructions, then the control for the IO devices will be IO read or IO write will be enabled. So isolated IO method, we use the same address and the data line, but separate control line, one for the IO devices and IO processors or other for the memory. The other alternative is the case in computers that employ only one set of read-write signals and do not distinguish between memory and IO addresses. So this method uses the same address space for both memory and IO and referred as memory mapped IO. Here the computer treats the interface registers as being part of the memory system. The assigned addresses for interface registers cannot be used for memory bus, which reduce the memory address. So here same control lines for both memory and the IO processor, only the difference is the memory spaces. Whenever we want to refer the memory transfer, the addresses will be different from that of the registers, interface registers. So the same address can be used both for memory or the IO, but that address will be different. Same control signals can be, same control signals can be used, same data lines can be used, but we use the same address line but with different address values. Some portion of the address values are selected for referring memory and some portion of the address values are selected for interface register. So in this alternative, in this method, though we can use the same address both for referring the memory or the IO, but here the range of memory addresses are reduced by a part which is used as referring the interface registers. So in a memory mapped IO organization, there are no specific input or output instructions. Computers with memory mapped IO can use memory type instruction to access IO. Only the difference will be in the address value, in the address line. Memory type instructions will have some selected address lines, whereas IO type instructions have different address values which will be available in the address line. So clear? So as we see that the IO devices are connected to the IO through the CPU through IO buses. So in a computer, we require two distinct buses, one for IO and the other for memory. Now there are three different ways. In one way, we can use two distinct different buses, one for referring IO transfer and the other for referring memory transfer. Or in the other alternative method, we can have the same address line and the data line, but different control line for referring either to the memory or the IO. So in this type of architecture, the instructions will have different values for IO reference and memory reference. So whenever the instruction is input-output instructions, Then control signals for I/O read-write will be initiated, and whenever the instructions are read-write instructions, then control signals for the memory read-write will be initiated. But the address and the data line are common to both of them. And the third alternative is all the lines are common to both the I/O devices and memory devices. So in this case, we do not have any different I/O instructions other than the memory reference instructions. Only how we differentiate between referring the I/O or the memory, that is differentiated by having different values of address in the address lines. Some addresses are fixed for referring memory and some addresses are fixed for referring addresses in the I/O devices. So this is all about how we can use transfer data or communicate between the memory, how the CPU can communicate with the memory as well as the I/O devices. Next one, we move on to asynchronous data operation. Now the internal operation, I have already mentioned that internal operation in a digital system is synchronized by means of a master clock pulse, which is supplied by a common pulse generator. Clock pulses are applied to all the registers within the unit. Now, two units, which is CPU and the I/O interface, they are designed independent of each other because I/O interface and I/O devices are peripheral devices. They are not online devices. So these two units are designed independent of each other. Now, if the registers in the interface share a common clock with that of the CPU registers, the transfer between the two units is said to be synchronous. In most cases, when the internal timing in each unit is independent from the other, they are said to be asynchronous. So, either the two units can be synchronous or they can be asynchronous. First, we see what will happen if they are synchronous, and then we will discuss if they are asynchronous. Asynchronous data transfer between two independent units requires control signals be transmitted between the communicating units to indicate the time at which the data is being transmitted. তোমার যদি কোনো দুটো ইউনিট থাকে, if they are asynchronous, ধরো একটা source unit, একটা destination unit, and they are not asynchronous, that means they are not connected through a common clock, then how you will enable how the transmission or communication between the two will be enabled. One way of achieving this is by means of a control signal known as strobe pulse, which is supplied by one of the unit to indicate to the other unit when there is a when their transfer has to occur. That means in addition to the data, we must have some control signal which is known as strobe pulse, which will be initiated either by the source unit or by the destination unit to indicate the other unit that it is a transfer between the two will have to occur. Now, there are some problem in the strobe pulse technique. So another method is used, which is known as handshaking method. Now let us first discuss strobe pulse technique, then we will discuss handshaking technique. Strobe pulse control. The method of data transfer employs a single control line to time each transfer. The strobe may activated by either the source or the destination unit. এখানে ছবিটা দেখো, we have source unit, destination unit. Strobe is a single line control signal which can be either generated by the source unit or the destination unit. But there is another line which is known as data bus. Data bus comprises of n data lines so that n bit data can be simultaneously transferred from the source unit to the destination unit. So here we call it as data bus, which consists of n line, but strobe line control signal is a single line, and that can be generated either by the source unit or by the destination unit. The data bus carries the binary information from the source to destination. The bus has multiple lines to transfer an entire word. The strobe is a single line that informs the availability of a valid data in the data bus. Now, if the transfer is initiated by the strobe is initiated by the source unit, then first the source unit first places the data on the data line, valid data, it places the data in the data line, then it generates the strobe pulse in the control line to ensure that the data available in the data bus is a valid data. Now, the source unit first places a data on the data bus. After a brief delay to ensure that the data settles to a steady value in the data bus, the source activates the strobe. They remain in the active state for a sufficient time period to allow the destination unit to receive the data. Then the source removes the data after it disables the strobe pulse. First it disables the strobe pulse, then it removes the data from the data line. This transfer is initiated by the source. But if the transfer is initiated by the destination unit, then what will happen? The destination unit will first a data transfer initiated by the destination unit. The destination unit first generates the strobe signal. The strobe signal is first generated. Now, whenever this signal reaches the source unit understands that the destination unit is ready to receive some data. So the destination source unit places the valid data on the data lines and whenever the destination unit receives the data, it then disables the strobe line because it has already received the data. So after certain time, whenever the data resides in the valid data line, the source unit withdraws the data. In this case, the destination unit activates the strobe pulse, informing the source to provide the data. The source unit then responds by placing the information in the bus. The data must remain in the bus long enough for the destination unit to accept it. The destination unit then disables the strobe and then source unit then disables the data in the data bus. Generally, the transfer between আমরা যে এই যে আমরা এঁকেছিলাম যে peripheral device interface and the processor. The transfer of data between the processor and interface is done through this strobe pulse technique. There is two transfer. Transfer of data from the processor to the interface, then transfer of data from the interface to the peripheral. Now this transfer of data from the processor to the interface is done through this strobe pulse technique. And the strobe pulses are generated from the clock pulses, master clock pulses available in the control unit. The transfer of data between the CPU and an interface unit is similar to strobe pulse transfer, and the strobe pulse is actually controlled by the clock pulses in the CPU. Now, problem of this strobe pulse technique is that it understands that whether the destination unit wants some data or according to the requirement of the source unit, it can deliver the data into the data bus. But in this technique, the source unit does not understand whether the destination unit has received the data successfully. So that is the limitation of strobe pulse technique. To remove this limitation, another technique is used, which is known as handshaking method. The disadvantage of the strobe pulse method is that the source unit that transfers the data has no way of knowing whether the destination unit has actually received the data or not. The handshaking method solves this problem by introducing a second control signal. এখানে দেখো দুটো control signal of one single line. One is data valid and the other one is known as data accepted. And data bus is n-bit line. One control line is the same direction as the data flow to inform the destination unit whether there is a valid data in the bus. The other control line is in the other direction. দেখো একটা হচ্ছে data flow যেদিকে সেই দিকে, আর একটা control উল্টো দিকে. The other control line is in the other direction to inform the source whether it can be accepted or not. Now again, this data transfer can be initiated either by the source unit or the destination unit. First, we consider the data transfer procedure when initiated by the source. The code, whenever the transfer is initiated by the source, the two control lines are known as, control signals are known as data values and data accepted. The two control lines are data valid, which is generated by the source unit, and data accepted generated by the destination unit. কিভাবে ট্রান্সফারটা হয় দেখো। First, the source unit places data on the bus and enables the data valid. That rests on the line. After some time, the destination unit accepts the data from the bus and enables the data accepted. Now, whenever the data accepted is transmitted, the source unit disables the data valid, and after some time, it invalidates the data on the bus. Then, the destination unit disables the data accepted so that it is ready for another transmission. So, first, the source unit places the data on the data bus, then it generates the data valid signal. Whenever the destination unit receives the data, it generates the data accepted, and whenever data accepted reaches the source unit, it disables the data valid and data on the bus. Then the destination unit disables the data accepted. So this is the case for transfer whenever the transfer is initiated by the source unit. Next, we discuss what will be the case whenever the source is initiated by the destination. Destination initiated the transfer using handshaking. Here you see that destination unit first generates a control signal known as ready for data. Destination unit is now ready. Whenever that reaches in the source unit understands that it is ready for data. So it places the data on the data bus and then generates the data valid. So first, the destination unit generates the control signal known as ready for data. Then data valid is placed on the, then the data is placed on the data bus by the source unit, and then the data valid control signal is placed. So first, destination unit initiates the transfer by enabling the ready to accept data. Whenever it reaches the source unit, it places the data on the bus and enables the data valid. Whenever the destination unit gets the data, it accepts the data from the bus and disables the ready for data, and then the source unit disables the data valid so that it is now ready for another transfer. So the difference between the stroke pulse technique and handshaking technique is that in the handshaking mode, two control signals are used. One is generated by the source unit and it moves along the data bus, and the other one is generated by the destination unit and it moves across the opposite direction of the bus. Generally, data transfer between an interface and I/O peripheral device is commonly controlled by a set of handshaking lines. The handshaking scheme provides a high degree of reliability. If one of the unit is faulty, the data transfer will not be completed. That was asynchronous parallel transfer. The transfer which we discussed was parallel transfer because data bus was of n lines and the source unit can transfer data n bit data simultaneously. Now, if the distance between the separation between the source unit and the destination unit is very large, then to use n such data lines, the cost of the lines will be very high. So in that case, instead of using parallel transfer, generally serial transfer method is used. So as what is asynchronous serial transfer? The transfer of data between two units may be done in parallel or series. In parallel data transmission, each bit has its own path and the total message is transmitted at a time. Whereas in serial data transmission, each bit of the message is sent in sequence one at a time. This method requires the use of only a pair of conductors, where a parallel transmission is faster but requires many wires. Now, this serial transmission can be again synchronous or asynchronous. In the synchronous transmission, so generally serial transmission is used whenever the distance between the source and the destination is very large. Now, serial transmission can be again synchronous and asynchronous. If the transmission is synchronous, the two units must share a common clock frequency and bits are transmitted continuously at the rate dictated by the clock pulses. Now, if the separation between the two is very large, then how a common clock can be used? They cannot use a common clock. The source and the destination unit uses two different clocks but of the same frequency. In long distance serial transmission, each unit is driven by a separate clock but of same frequency. And in that case, to make the synchronization signals are transmitted periodically between the two units to keep their clocks in step to each other. So, in case of synchronous serial transmission, synchronous signals are transmitted periodically between the two units to keep their clock in step. But that is quite cumbersome. So, generally for long distance communication, asynchronous serial transfer is used. A serial asynchronous data transmission technique employs, it employs some special bits at both end of the character code. যে ডেটাটা আমি সিরিয়ালি পাঠাতে চাই তার সামনে আর পেছনে কিছু এক্সট্রা বিট দিয়ে দেয় to understand the destination, to ensure that the destination will understand that now the available data in the data line is the actual data. With this technique, each character consists of three parts: a start bit, the character bits, and stop bit. The convention is that in the ideal case, the transmitter reads at one state when no character is transmitted. যখন কোনো data transfer করা হচ্ছে না, the transmitter is in the one state. Now the start bit is always 0. One state থেকে যেই 0 এলো, destination unit বুঝতে পারবে যে তাহলে এটা এখন data transmission start করছে. So start bit is always 0 and used to indicate the beginning of the transfer. তারপরে কত ক্যারেক্টার ডেটা সেটা আমরা জানি পরপর যাবে, যেই সেই ডেটাটা শেষ হয়ে যাবে, the last bit which is called the stop bit is again set to 1 so that again the line will rest in the one state. তোমার যে অ্যাকচুয়াল ডেটা সেই ডেটার লাস্ট বিটটা 1ও হতে পারে 0 হতে পারে, সুতরাং তুমি জানো না, সেই জন্য এক্সট্রা একটা স্টপ বিট ইউজ করা হয় following the actual data which is always 1 so that the line will rest in the one state. The convention is that the transmitter rests at one state to ensure that the stop bit is always chosen as 1. Start bit is always chosen as 0, stop bit is always chosen as 1. Sometimes instead of 1 bit, in some cases 1 or 2 bits are used as the start bit or stop bit. A transmitter character can be detected by the receiver from the knowledge of the transmission rules. Key rules: when a character is not being sent, the line is kept in one state. The initiation of the transmission is detected from the start bit, which is always 0. The character bit always follow the start bit. After the last bit of the character, a stop bit is detected when the line again returns to one state. So in the serial asynchronous data transmission, the actual data transmission is done through three parts. First, the transmission of the start bit, then the actual characters in series, and then the last bit, which is known as stop bit. And the start bit should be always 0 and the stop bit should be always 1, so that in the ideal condition, the line rests in the 1 state. So a clock in the receiver examines the line at proper bit times. The receiver knows the transfer rate and the number of bits to accept. Now in this serial asynchronous transfer, a rate, baud rate is sometimes defined, which is defined as the rate at which serial information is transmitted. That is data transfer in bits per second. এক সেকেন্ডে কটা বিট ট্রান্সফার হচ্ছে, দ্যাট ইজ নোন অ্যাজ baud rate. ধরো তোমার একটা কোনো সিস্টেম আছে যেখানে 10 characters can be transmitted per second and each character is of length 11-bit format. Then the baud rate will be 110, 10 characters, each of length 11-bit. So the baud rate will be 100. So the transfer rate of the line is 110 baud. Next one is mode of transfer. Binary information received from an external device is usually stored in the memory for processing. তোমার ডেটাটা কিভাবে ট্রান্সফার হয় মেশিনের মধ্যে, যে ডেটাই তুমি ইনপুট করো এক্সটার্নালি থ্রু দ্য আইও ডিভাইসেস, that goes through the CPU to the memory, that is stored in the memory for later processing. Similarly, information transferred from CPU into an external device originate in the memory. So CPU executes the IO instruction, but ultimate source or destination is the memory unit. So CPU and IO, যদিও CPU থেকে IO যাচ্ছে, কিন্তু ফাইনাল আলটিমেট ডেস্টিনেশন ইজ দ্য মেমরি। যখন তুমি কোনো ডেটা আউটপুট করতে যাও, মেমরি থেকে ফার্স্টে CPU আসে, তারপরে CPU থেকে IO ডিভাইসেস। তেমনি তুমি যখন কোনো ডেটা ইনপুট করতে চাও, IO ডিভাইস থেকে ইট গোস টু CPU and from CPU it goes to memory device. Now this data transfer to and from peripherals may be handled in one of the three possible modes. One is known as programmed IO, and the other one is known as interrupt initiated IO, and the third one is known as direct memory access or DMA. First 1 and 2 we have already discussed in our instruction formats. In the programmed IO method, these operations are the results of IO instructions written in the program. যখন আমার প্রোগ্রামের মধ্যে কোনো একটা ইনপুট বা আউটপুট ইনস্ট্রাকশন থাকে, তখন সেই ইনস্ট্রাকশন যখন এক্সিকিউট হয়, usually the transfer is to and from CPU register and peripheral. Other instructions are needed to transfer data to and from memory. ইনপুট আউটপুট হলো ইনস্ট্রাকশন হলো CPU থেকে পেরিফেরাল, আর মেমরি থেকে CPU আসার জন্য তোমার read write instruction use করতে হবে. So transferring data under program control requires constant monitoring of the peripheral by CPU. The CPU কে কনস্ট্যান্ট দেখতে হয় যখনই প্রোগ্রাম এক্সিকিউট করবে যে আমার পেরিফেরাল কোনো একটা ডেটা চাইছে কি চাইছে না। এবং we have already discussed that as the speed of operation of the peripheral devices is much lower in comparison to the CPU, so CPU wastes some time, so the speed of operation is decreased. So instead of using programmed IO method, interrupt initiated IO method is used. In the interrupt IO initiated method, in the programmed IO method, the CPU stays in a program lib until the IO unit indicates that it is ready for transfer data. This is a time-consuming process. This can be avoided by using an interrupt facility and special commands to inform the interface to issue an interrupt request signal when the data are available from the device. এটা আমরা আগেই ডিসকাস করেছি যে প্রোগ্রাম আইওর বদলে আমরা যদি ইন্টারাপ্ট ইনিশিয়েটেড, এমনি আমার CPU নিজের প্রোগ্রামটা এক্সিকিউট করে যাবে, যখনই আমার কোনো একটা আইও ট্রান্সফারের দরকার হবে, it will first initiate some interrupt, and whenever an interrupt is initiated, the CPU will understand that it requires some IO transfer, so it momentarily stops the task it was processing and branches to a service program known as IO transfer program and does the transfer and then again returns to the task it was originally performing. So in the interrupt initiate IO, the CPU responds to an interrupt signal by storing the return address from the program counter into a memory stack and then control branches to service routine. The way the processor chooses the branch address varies from one unit to other unit. In principle, there are two methods. One is known as vector interrupt and the other one is non-vector interrupt. In a non-vector interrupt, the branch address is assigned to a fixed location in the memory. Branch address is assigned to a fixed location in the memory. আমরা যেটা interrupt initiate করেছিলাম, that was non-vector because that branch address was fixed location. Zero location of the memory, সেখানেই branch হয়ে যেত, সেখান থেকে আমাদের IO service programটা start হতো. But in a vectored interrupt, the source that interrupt supplies the branch information to the computer. This information is called interrupt vector. So it can be interrupted two ways, vectored interrupt or non-vector interrupt. We have discussed non-vector interrupt in our instruction format. In a typical application, it may happen that a number of IO devices are attached to the computer, with each device being able to originate an interrupt request. So many interrupts can be provided by the different IO devices simultaneously. Then the first task of the system is to identify the source of interrupt, and if several sources request the service simultaneously, then to decide which device is to serve first. A priority interrupt is a system that establishes a priority over various sources. Generally, devices with high-speed transfer, such as magnetic disks, are given high priority. Establishing the priority can be done by a software or a hardware. Now, the third type of transfer is known as direct memory access or DMA. Transfer of data under programmed IO or interrupt initiate IO is between CPU and peripheral. But in direct memory address, the interface transfer data into and out of the memory through the memory bus. সেখানে CPU কে কোনো কাজে ইউজ করা হয়। Generally, the CPU initiates the transfer by supplying the interface with the starting address and then proceeds to execute other tasks. Now, এই DMA ট্রান্সফারটা করার জন্য একটা কন্ট্রোলার লাগে, যাকে বলা হয় DMA কন্ট্রোলার। A DMA controller takes over the buses to manage the transfer directly between the IO device and the CPU initiates transfer by supplying the interface with starting address and then proceeds to execute other tasks. A DMA controller takes over the buses to manage the transfer directly between IO devices and the memory. So DMA controller এটা আলাদা, এটা তোমাদেরকে পড়ানো হয় না। DMA controller একটা আলাদা সার্কিট যেটা অনেক মেশিনে ইউজ করা থাকে, যেখানে CPU জাস্ট ইনিশিয়েট করে দেয় স্টার্টিং অ্যাড্রেসটা, যে এখন আমার কোনো একটা ডেটা ইনপুট হবে বা আউটপুট হবে। তারপর DMA controller takes charge and directly transfer the data between the peripheral device and the memory. IO processor. Instead of having each interface communicate with the CPU, a computer incorporates one or two external processors and assign them the task of communicating directly with the IO devices. In this configuration, the computer system can be divided into memory unit, a number of processors comprised of CPU and one more IOPs. Each IOP takes care of input-output tasks, relieving the CPU. The CPU is responsible for processing data needed in the solution. The IOP only provides a path of transfer of data between the different peripheral device and memory. শান্ত সার্কিটটা কিরকম হয়? তোমার একটা সিপিইউ আছে, তাছাড়া কিছু এগুলো তোমার পেরিফেরাল ডিভাইস, একটা আইও প্রসেসর আছে। আর মেমরি ক্যান ডিরেক্টলি কমিউনিকেট বিটুইন দ্য সিপিইউ অ্যান্ড দ্য আইও প্রসেসর। নাও সিপিইউ ফার্স্টে ইনস্ট্রাকশন গুলো ডিকোড করবে, করে যে ডেটাটা যখন ট্রান্সফার দরকার হবে তখন আইও প্রসেসর উইল communicate with the peripheral device to initiate the transfer between them. The CPU is usually assigned the task of initiating the IO program. From then on, IO processor operates independent of CPU. The data formats of peripheral devices differ from memory and CPU formats. The IOP must structure data words from many different sources. Similarly, an output word transferred from memory to the IO processor is directed from the IO processor to the IO devices at the device rate. In most computer systems, the CPU is the master while IO processor is the slave. So in this way, the input-output system can be done and the machine can be used in a data system. So this is all about input-output organization. So till now, this is all. আজকে তোমাদের ক্লাস শেষ হয়ে গেল। আমি তোমাদেরকে এই নোটটা পাঠিয়ে দেবো, আইও ডিভাইসেস এর নোটটা পাঠিয়ে দেবো, মেমোরিটা তো পাঠিয়ে দিয়েছি, আইওটা পাঠিয়ে দেবো, আর কয়েকটা চ্যাপ্টার ওই ম্যানোর বইয়ের কয়েকটা চ্যাপ্টারে কতগুলো প্রবলেম আমি নোট করে রেখেছি সেগুলো দিয়ে দেবো, সেগুলো করলেই তোমাদের পরীক্ষার জন্য হবে। ওকে?
Yes, ma'am.
সো এখন আর কোনো দরকার নেই, যদি পরীক্ষার ডেট টেট কিছু অ্যানাউন্স হয় তখন তোমরা আমার সঙ্গে যোগাযোগ করো ফোনে, তখন আবার কমিউনিকেট করো। আপাতত আমার ক্লাস শেষ। থ্যাংক ইউ। ঠিক আছে,
Thank you, ma'am.
বাই বাই, বেস্ট অফ লাক সবাইকে।
Thank you.
আমি যখন জানতে পারবো যে কবে পরীক্ষা হবে, তোমরাও জানতে পারলে জানাবে, আমি জানতে পারলেও তোমাদেরকে জানিয়ে দেবো গ্রুপ মেলে। ঠিক আছে?
Yes. Thank you.
থ্যাংক ইউ। ভালো থেকো সবাই, ভালো থেকো, ভালো করে পড়াশোনা করো।